Good evening, boxing fans, and welcome back. In a day and age where trash talk appears to be such commonplace in order to sell fights to the public, am I the only one who was pleasantly surprised to see the display of mutual respect and good sportsmanship exhibited by both Sergey Kovalev and Andre Ward? This is Rummy's Corner. So it's official now. All of the obstacles that could have prevented a fight, the best fight that could be made in boxing between Sergey Kovalev and Andre Ward, all of those would-be obstacles are now behind us. Andre Ward took care of business in his final tune-up bout against Alexander Brand this weekend, much like Sergey Kovalev had taken care of business in his final tune-up bout against Isaac Chilemba last month. In terms of the two tune-up bouts each guy had leading up to this mega bout, I think each of the guys met the objectives they were looking to achieve going in. First and foremost, both of them won, both of them dominated, and neither one of them suffered an injury during the fight. So that's the most important thing off the top of the bat, that they both won and the fight presses forward. But in terms of individual objectives, for Kovalev, I think that Chilemba represented an ideal challenge for him in order to help prepare for somebody like Andre Ward. Isaac Chilemba does a lot of things that Sergey Kovalev got to see that are the type of things he's going to see from Andre Ward. It's not exactly the same, but I think Chilemba is a pretty good representation of Andre Ward, and I think this was really good preparation for Kovalev where he got some really good rounds in. And despite the fact that Chilemba is this tricky type of guy that isn't easy to look good against, Kovalev took care of business against him. And as far as Andre Ward goes in terms of his objective, I don't believe his objective necessarily mirrored that of what Kovalev's objective was. Meaning, I don't think that he viewed Alexander Brand as a guy that was going to specifically prepare him for Kovalev in the same way I believe Chilemba would help prepare Kovalev for Ward. For Ward, I think this was more of a mental tune-up of going through the motions and getting sharper more than anything. Because Brand doesn't fight much like Kovalev, but in this fight, Ward got some really good work in. He got 12 rounds in. He displayed his full offensive arsenal. He got to try different things. He went southpaw in there for a few rounds and managed to land some good left hands out of that southpaw stance. I don't necessarily think this is something he's going to try against Kovalev. I think that would open him up to some right hands, but you never know how Ward might switch things up during the course of the fight. And if nothing else, it gives Kovalev another thing to think about going into this fight. All that said, Ward was having a lot of success with his jab, with his right hand, with his hook. He was having success as a southpaw. He was working both upstairs and downstairs very well, and doing a full variety of things that we've grown accustomed to see from Andre Ward. The fact that one of the biggest knocks on Andre Ward in recent years has been the fact that he had only fought 4 times in the last 5 years, I think that a lot of people are overlooking the importance of just going through the motions and getting 12 rounds in. I think this benefits somebody like Ward immensely, and while I think Chilemba was great preparation for Kovalev, I don't necessarily think that's the type of preparation someone as versatile and intelligent as Ward needed going into the Kovalev bout. I think he got what he needed, much in the same way I think Kovalev got what he needed. And I thought they both did fine jobs given the circumstances in their tune-up bouts. Chilemba obviously a higher regarded foe than Brand was, but again, I think they had different objectives coming in with this. So what do these fights tell us in terms of who might win this upcoming mega showdown in the boxing world between Kovalev and Ward? For my worthless 2 cents, I think the key to victory for Sergey Kovalev starts and ends with his jab. In my opinion, Kovalev has always been far more effective when he's working behind his jab than in those moments where he has lapses and kind of gets away from using it. And I think you could see this in a lot of his recent fights. Bernard Hopkins being the example of a fight where I thought Kovalev used his jab as efficiently as I've seen him, and he stayed focused and he continued to use it, and he never lost track of the fact that the jab was the most important thing for him in that night against Bernard Hopkins. In his fights against Pascal, particularly the first fight, I thought he made things a little bit more difficult on himself than he needed to. When he was getting away from his jab and engaging in more of a brawl type of scenario, he wasn't doing as well. I don't think he was delivering his power as effectively, and I don't think he was fighting as efficiently as he can when he works behind the jab. I think we saw more of this in the Chilemba fight. When Kovalev was jabbing, Chilemba had a lot more to worry about than when he wasn't jabbing. And I just think the optimal way for Kovalev to deliver his devastating power shots, he must jab against Andre Ward. And even if he's not having success with the jab, if he's missing, if he's getting countered over the top, he still needs to keep using it. It's just something I cannot imagine him abandoning and having a lot of success against Ward. That doesn't mean if his jab's not working that he can't beat Ward, because he has that game-changing power. But I think in order to give himself his best chance of victory, he needs to stay committed to his jab, and it's a very good jab from Kovalev. For Andre Ward, I think the key to victory is neutralizing Kovalev's power. Now that might be easier said than done, and that's not going to be something that you could do just through one thing. It's going to take a combination of different things for Andre to succeed in doing this. And first and foremost, the best way to do this is to avoid getting hit altogether. So I expect Ward to come in there with an extra tight defense, being wary of Kovalev's shot, especially in the early going where he's trying to measure and see what Kovalev is all about. I think you're going to see some tight defense from Ward where he tries to avoid Kovalev's shots altogether. But of course, he's not going to be able to avoid all of his shots. So the other things that Ward's going to need to do is find ways of taking the sting off of Kovalev's punches in the instances when he does get hit, and opening him up to counters in the instances where he does. This is all going to depend on positioning and awareness. But it's not just any specific positioning, it's complete positioning. Foot positioning, upper body positioning, shoulder positioning, hand positioning, head movement, upper body movement. All of this has to be working really well together for Ward to help minimize the damage being inflicted by the punches that do get through. Ward is very good at doing this, and one of the best things Ward seems able to do is be either too far away or too close to his opponents in order for them to get their shots off effectively. And then, of course, as a more proactive measure to help neutralize Kovalev's power shots, he has to try to shut down Kovalev's jab. And if he can manage to do that, and I think one way he could do that is with his own very good jab, and he needs to find ways in conjunction with positioning and good defense, he's got to find a way to get his own jab off and neutralize Kovalev's. So for what it's worth, I think those are the two keys to victory for each guy. For Kovalev, establishing and consistently making use of the jab. For Ward, using a variety of different skill sets to try to neutralize Kovalev's power shots. At the end of the day, I honestly believe Kovalev has more room for error here. I think, in other words, he can afford to make more mistakes than Ward can. Kovalev can make a lot of mistakes, and with that game-changing power, he could still find a way to win the fight. Ward makes too many mistakes. I'm not sure how many power shots he can take from Kovalev. But the flip side to that is that Andre Ward is much less inclined to make a mistake than Sergey Kovalev, who not only is more apt to make mistakes, but I think is more apt to lose focus and stray away from his game plan while in the heat of battle. Whatever the case may be, I'm super excited to see this fight. I'm fired up. I think the winner of this brings us a new undisputed pound-for-pound king, following the vacant reign left by Floyd Mayweather Jr. Can't wait to see it. This is Rummy. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to my channel, and have a very good evening. Good night.